Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's doing well this Monday evening. Living in this newly dystopian landscape. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. We're all, well, many of us are been held captive by the Rona, and I hope everybody's taking their precautions. You're washing your hands and, you know, practicing social distancing and everything. So, but today, hey, what's up, Carmel? What's going on? Um, if you like what's going on, please like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell. And yeah, so what I want to do today is talk about, well, since we've been um, locked up, like we're all prisoners. I'm sure a lot of us have been binging, and those of us who are big sci-fi fans, I'm sure we've been really digging into all the Star Wars that we can via Disney Plus. Of course, the new season of Clone Wars and final season Clone Wars is out right now on Disney Plus, so that's been pretty cool. So I was just thinking, uh, when you think of Star Wars, right? There's certain characters you guys think of, right? And for example, these guys right here, right? Let me get to where I need to be. Okay, right. So you got your Darth Vader, you got your Princess Leia, Chewbacca, Luke Skywalker. Then later on, of course, Boba Fett becomes a fan favorite. So much so they basically resurrected from the dead after he got killed by that creature, right? And of course, the Mandalorian, is all the rage right now. And C3PO, been Han Solo, R2D2, right? These are guys that we're all familiar with, right? But what I want to talk about today is a guy that many of us might not be familiar with, and that's Wedge Antilles. And you're probably thinking, who in the world is this guy? Was this guy even in any of the movies? In fact, he was. He was in the original trilogy. And if you do your little research, you find out that this guy was very, very much an important backbone of the trilogy. Now, how do I come to that conclusion? Well, I'm glad you asked. It says here, Wedge appears towards the end of Star Wars as Red 2, an X-Wing pilot and a member of Red Squadron. Keep that in mind. He's a member of Red Squadron. He's Red 2, right? His considerable dogfighting prowess is shown in the Battle of Yavin when he saves Luke Skywalker by shooting down a TIE fighter that Luke had been unable to shake off with a head-on high deflection angle shot. Along with Luke and Biggs, Darklighter, he is one of only 3 X-Wing pilots to survive until the final attack run along the Death Star's trench. However, his X-Wing is damaged and he's forced to disengage before the Death Star is destroyed. He and Luke are the only 2 X-Wing pilots to survive the battle, along with a Y-Wing and a Millennium Falcon. So this dude plays a huge part, right? Because he was the one that was able to shoot down that TIE fighter that was on Luke. And if Luke dies, that's it. Because there's no one else that could make that shot except somebody who has force capabilities, right? So he was it. And this dude was pretty nice because out of the whole squadron, it's basically just him and Luke at the end of the day, right? So this dude plays a major part in the series. Wedge appears in The Empire Strikes Back as a member of the newly formed Rogue Squadron. Now, of course, Rogue One, right? The prequel, right? You guys know about that. He flies a snowspeeder against the Empire's AT-AT, or AT or T, depending how you guys, want to say that, ground assault with Wes Jansen and his harpoon gunner. Their snowspeeder inflicts the first casualty against the AT-AT attack group by firing a harpoon trailing a tow cable into one of Walker's legs and circling the Walker several times, causing him to trip and fall and allowing rebel forces to destroy the walker after the battle. So again, this dude, right? We just saw he saved Luke, and him and this other guy. They're the ones that helped really bring down one of the major AT-ATs when we was in the movie, right? That really cool flying sequence when they tie up the legs, right? So this guy's a beast. This guy's he's an ace pilot, but we don't really talk about him, right? All right. So Wedge appears towards the end of Return of the Jedi as the leader of Red Squadron. Now remember, right? He was Red 2, a member of the squadron. He now leads the squadron. So now he's been promoted. In the Battle of Endor, along with Lando Calrissian, who pilots the Millennium Falcon with Nien Nunb, he leads the fighter attack on the second Death Star. He leads the attack, right? His dogfighting prowess is shown again in this battle as Wedge personally shoots down a number of Imperial TIE fighters and appears to easily navigate the narrow and treacherous flight spaces inside the Death Star that leads to its core. When he and Lando reach the Death Star core, Wedge destroys the power regulator on the core's North Tower, while Lando destroys the core itself. He later appears at the victory celebration at the Ewok village on Endor. So in the beginning of this trilogy, we see that he saves Luke. And in the second joint, we see him, really causing first blood in the attack, against these AT-ATs. Here, he's now the leader of the squadron, and he's leading the attack, and he actually helps to bring down the second Death Star. This dude is amazing, right? And this might be a spoiler for you guys. I don't know if you've seen the most recent film, but Wedge appears in the final installment of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker. He is seen manning a gun turret on the Millennium Falcon during the battle between the Resistance and the Final Order. So he starts off just being a member of a squadron, ends up leading the squadron, then ends up alongside the Millennium Falcon to destroy the second Death Star. Now he's actually in the Millennium Falcon helping fight, against the Final Order. So this dude is like, Hall of Famer material. But you never really think of him, right? When you think Star Wars, you think Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and, or even maybe Darth Maul, and you got these other individuals, Count Dooku, even the most lesser known have more celebrity than Mr. Antilles here, right? So why do I bring all this up? Like, what does this have to do with the Bible? Well, there are a lot of Wedge Antilles in the New Testament, and I want to use this as a jumping point to really think about that. It's a lot of unsung heroes in the New Testament as well. We start off with Titus. Titus gets mentioned quite a bit in the New Testament. He's in Acts 20, verse 4, Ephesians 6:21, Colossians 4:7, 2 Timothy 4:12, Titus 3:12. Titus had a job to do. He was to deliver news about Paul, as well as Paul's letter to the people in Colossae. The result would be the encouragement of the Christian hearts. So these amazing letters that comprise of what we now call the New Testament, he helped bring these copies to these different congregations. So everybody will have a copy of these letters. So we do have a lot to thank for him because one, he made sure everybody was connected. He was the Facebook for the church, basically. He's the ones connecting people left and right, and it's because of him and him delivering these copies, we have our copies. If he didn't do his job, we might not have the New Testament that we have now, if at all. So this dude is definitely unsung hero. Then you got Eristicus, and he shows up a lot as well. Acts 19, verse 29, Acts 20, verse 4, Acts 27, verse 2, Colossians 4, verse 10, Philemon chapter 1, verse 24. Eristicus was one of Paul's companions in ministry, and here he is shown as a companion in suffering. We need people like Eristicus who stay focused on the kingdom regardless of the consequences, who rejoice with us in times of joy and mourn with us in times of trial. Eristicus was that ride or die friend, that person that's going to rock with you until the wheels fall off. This is who this guy was to Paul, right? Because when we think of Paul, we think this dude is he's the iron apostle. You know what I mean? Nothing scathes him. He gets stoned. He comes up. He goes back in town like some sort of Hebrew Terminator, right? Like, it's unstoppable. He has no problems. That's a lie, because he's a human being and he has problems and he needs to talk to people. And, you know, he goes through stuff and he still needs other people to be there with him. And Eristicus was one of those people. You know, he might have never written anything, right? Or healed anybody, but he was a great friend to the person that helped bring us the New Testament. You know, being a great friend is very, very powerful. You know, you might not get the accolades that the person you're a friend to, but that friend knows that you are valuable and super important. You know, one of the greatest things you can be is a good friend to somebody, to help them stay faithful and steadfast, especially at times like this, right? With social distancing, and, you know, we can't just run over to somebody's house and talk to them and pray. But, you know, thanks to technology, we could still reach out to them. We could still maintain our friendships via Zoom and Skype and YouTube, right? So sometimes the best thing you can do, the best unsung hero, is somebody who's there, who suffers alongside you, and is your friend, right? Then you got Justus. He's in Acts 1:23, Acts 18:7, and Colossians 4:11. Justus willingly set aside his identity twice in order to spread the gospel. First, through his name was Jesus, he went by Justus, probably to avoid confusion with the Jesus he was proclaiming. Secondly, he left his own people, the Jews, in order to spread the gospel among those in Rome. Justus grounded his identity in Jesus Christ, right? Which is huge. You know, we know, you know, by being Christians, that what we're called to do is, when you look at Luke chapter 9, is to deny yourself, right? If you're going to follow Jesus, you can't be who you are. You got to be who Jesus is. Whoever you are disappears. And Justus is a prime example of that. Even though his name was Jesus, and honestly, it wouldn't be. It's not like it was a sin issue for him to have the same name as Jesus. Jesus was a very popular name in the first century, but he really wanted to deny himself. It's like, you know what? I don't want nobody misconstruing what I'm trying to say or proclaim, so I'm going to make sure I'm Justus, right? And then he goes into a people that were not his people, not his culture, right? But he had such a love for people that he went out and help people and help them understand what the gospel is. That's what makes him an unsung hero. That's why he's mentioned 3 times in the New Testament. You know, it'd be great if I just got one shout out. This dude is mentioned 3 times. You know, this guy is important. You know, but from Luke recognizes his importance, and so does Paul, right? To be humble, to deny yourself. You know, the humble people are not usually the ones you see on stage, usually, right? They're not the ones that are rocking and everybody knows their name. Like, no, these are the guys in the back that do the simple things, you know, whether it's ushering or the AV team, which is funny, right? Because now the AV team is definitely front and center, right? All these virtual church services, the AV team is definitely getting busy. But usually they're afterthought, right? The people that you know, who visit the shut-ins in your church, who can't make it every Sunday, like, these people are the unsung heroes. They are the Justus of the church. Then we got Epaphras. Let me see how I say this right. Epaphras. He's in Colossians 1:7, Colossians 4:12, Philemon 1:23. Epaphras was a prayer warrior. Burdened by the spiritual immaturity he saw in others, he went before the throne of grace and contended for God's people in prayer. He was actually known as a prayer warrior. You know, I'm always shocked when I bump into somebody and they'll say, hey, I was praying for you. I didn't know, right? And you wouldn't either unless they told you. You know, there are people in your life that pray for you and you don't even know it. And those people you don't know are probably the most powerful people that you meet in your life, because they're always at the throne of God, requesting that God shows you mercy, and shows you wisdom, and protects you, and sends his angels to protect you. Like they're asking God to give you supernatural coverage. You know, that's huge. You know, when someone says, I'm praying for you, I mean, that's what's happening, right? They're going into the throne of God and advocating for you as opposed to themselves. It's like I can ask for stuff for me. I can ask God to do something for me. But right now, I want to talk about so and so. God, can you help this person? God, can you help that person? You know, you can be a prayer warrior as well. You'll never get the accolades. You won't get the pat in the back, but you can really help people come to Christ, stay in Christ, and grow into Christ through prayer. And all of us, right, can be unsung heroes. We might, you know, it's too late for us to get mentioned in the New Testament, but it's not too late for us to also be the Wedge Antilles of our local congregations and churches. Right? 1 Corinthians 1, starting in verse 25, for the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. For consider your calling, brothers. Not many of you were wise, according to worldly standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. All right? Paul's saying, listen, you guys weren't a big deal in the world. You didn't have a lot of money. You wasn't even considered smart. But now God can use you. You could be part of God's squadron. Right? You are now Wedge Antilles. You can get busy now. Even though you was a nobody, you're somebody in the kingdom of God. And a lot of times we forget that. You know, we think, well, you know, I'm not a member of the usher board, or I'm not an elder, or I'm not a deacon. I don't got my own YouTube channel. You know, I don't get on stage and preach. I mean, so what? That doesn't make you any less effective. Because these guys, a lot of us, we didn't even know these guys even existed in the New Testament until right now. But these guys played a major role to get us here. If these guys didn't do their job, who knows how Christianity would have went, right? A lot of times we just think Paul's just this, and he is an amazing guy with his intestinal fortitude, and he's just, you know, the Bible Rambo, and he's just going in there, and he's all that. But now we see he had a team. He had a bunch of people that he needed to help him deliver messages, to pray for him, or just to be by his side and be a good friend. He needed all of this. And of course, most importantly, Jesus and his spirit to help him, you know, maneuver and get the word out throughout the first century, throughout the known world. You know, so you can be that person. Now, maybe God called you to be the person on stage to preach. It could be. Or maybe God called you to be that person's friend. And both jobs are equally as important to spreading the gospel. You know, so let me stop sharing. Yeah, so yeah, they were all Greek names, Caramel. Now, that's an interesting question. How does that work in marriage? Can you explain what you mean by that? What does that mean in marriage? Because I wasn't watching. I was looking at the slides, so I didn't see your comment till now. So, could you tell me what you mean? How does that work in marriage? How to be the unsung hero? You mean? I don't know what you mean by that. Anybody? Let me give a shout out to my man, Big Yehuda. What's good, bro? Thank you for supporting. Definitely appreciate you. Yeah, I hope you enjoy this. When you see it, giving you a shout out right here. Please share the video when you can. So hopefully we'll catch you next time live. All right. So Carmel, I don't know if you're still here or not. When you're talking about denying yourself, yeah, well, it's kind of like, well, imagine, let's say we're going to the movies, right? And let's say it's me, SOC, you, and Beatrice, right? And we all decide that we're gonna see Rise of Skywalker, right? We all agree, but then you say, "Hey, how about Beatrice? Did you ask what she wants to see?" And I'm like, "Who?" Like Beatrice is right there. It's like, I don't know who you're talking about, right? I'm denying her existence, right? Even though she's really there with us, I'm denying her existence. Shout out to Beatrice. I'm just using you as an example. So, but right? So it's like, it's not about being you, it's about being like Christ. Like, that's what we're called to do. Now, the funny thing with that is the more you're like Christ, the more of the real you actually shows up. Because we all have different aspects of Christ in us. So when we decide to give into that, the part that we play in the body of Christ actually materializes. But it doesn't really happen until you decide that, you know what, it's not about me, it's about Christ. And when it comes to marriage, yeah, when both parties do that, you're going to have a really good marriage. You show me a bad marriage, I'll show you somebody not denying themselves in that marriage, whether it's one or both of them. So I hope that helps. So, yeah, guys, any other questions? Any other things? Please like and share, subscribe. Please share the video. It's a very, it was pretty short. I just thought it was interesting. I kind of ran into an article about Wedge Antilles, and I wasn't even aware of how amazing this dude was. So, and I thought it was just a great way to, and it made me think about the unsung heroes in the Bible as well. So, we're all unsung heroes for the most part. Like a husband would agree to do something because of his wife. Yeah. Even when he doesn't want to, that's something we all, go through. Sometimes I gotta, do certain things. I might not feel like doing it, but I'm like, well, because I love her, I'm going to do that. Right. And vice versa. Right. So, but yeah, guys, actually, I'm going to end this right here. Short and sweet. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. And, like I said, please subscribe, hit the bell so you can be notified when the next thing jumps off. All right. So this is the BK Apologist signing off. Catch you on the flip side. Peace.